Good afternoon, New Orleans, or wherever you may be. It's 4 o'clock Wednesday, so this must be the Baldy and The Blonde show. I'm your co-host, Tom Coates, and I'm happy to report that the other host, Michelle Godin, is actually with us in the studio today after a long absence.
Yes, I've been gone for 2 weeks. I went to the Smoky Mountains. How dare I go have
Welcome
fun
back.
when the world is crumbling? Speaking of which, I'm just going to roll right into what I consider to be outrageous news. Once again, impugning the medical community who deserves to be impugned and discredited in every way possible at this point. I don't know what's going on, but the collective scientific community has the curiosity of a pet rock, literally. For those of you too young to know what that is, it's just think of it as a rock.
Literally a rock.
A rock that
was
people,
a pet.
Yeah, it was a pet. People collected these stupid rocks, but obviously stupid, no brain. I don't know what is wrong with the medical community, but we actually have it. The CDC has announced that last week that autism is now, from 2020, it was 1 in 36. It is now 1 in 31 children. And what are we doing about it?
Wait.
Absolutely nothing.
For
nothing.
boys, it's 1 in how many? Was it
in
1 in
California,
20?
it's 1 in 12. Okay.
But I think 1 in 20 overall.
I think so, but for sure, the CDC,
Right.
the seat of all evil, now acknowledges 1 in 31 children. Okay, so Bobby Kennedy came out and said, I'm going to read what he said. He said something about autism that caused an uproar. And I will get into that in a minute. He said, more than 25% of people who have severe autism will never go on a date, write a poem, live independently, or have a job. And then he makes this just crazy recommendation. We need to identify the exposures that are causing this epidemic and compensate the families of the insured.
Oh, the horrors.
Oh, how
Let's look
dare...
into it?
What? Look into it. All that seems to matter, if you watch the Kennedy confirmation hearings, all they cared about was vaccines don't cause autism.
Right. Okay.
Okay, but what does?
What does?
What is the problem?
They don't. Fine. That's not what he's talking
Well, we
about.
don't really know that. I know you're saying it rhetorically.
Right, rhetorically. Let's just say they don't. You're not curious what does?
No, they're not. No one's curious.
Nobody in Bobby Kennedy's position has ever been curious about this.
He's not curious. Senator Cassidy was not curious, allegedly a medical doctor who we know was responsible for pushing the hepatitis B vaccine on a newborn, as in just got out of mommy's womb, here's a hepatitis B vaccine, which would be appropriate if the baby was a hooker or an IV drug user. But otherwise, it's completely insane. So he has no credibility, must be defeated. He must be. Anyway, so you would think that people would be in the streets screaming, yes, we have to get to the bottom of this before it's, will we care when it's every single child? I just don't get it. I don't get it. So,
well, we're on that trajectory.
Well, we absolutely are.
It used to be 1 in 10,000.
10,
when they first started measuring. It used to be they didn't even measure.
No, because it was unheard of.
Because it was just so rare. So they didn't even try to find out what the prevalence was. And then when they did try to measure it, they came out with 1 in 10,000.
That's right.
Then it was half of that, then half of that, then 1 in 1,000, and till now we are at 1 in 31. So what are we going to be in 5 years? 1 in 10?
That's going to be it. That's where we're headed. And in California, it's 1 in 12 boys in California. Wow. Okay. So no matter if you're trying desperately to protect your big daddy who donates to your campaign, and that goes for most politicians, big pharma, don't you want to know what it is? I mean, it's the reason people implicate vaccines is because literally when I was a kid, we got 3. Right behind me, kids got 8. And then all of a sudden, under Ronald Reagan, I'm sorry to say, he allowed vaccines that were approved for childhood to be liability free. So no matter what they do to you, basically, okay, there's a little bit of exceptions, and I'm not getting into them. They're scot-free on liability, okay? Same with the COVID vaccines, by the way, because they were an emergency. It was an emergency. So these companies made all this money and make all this money, and if they screw up your kid for life, too bad, they're off scot-free. And who pays when there are payments? The taxpayers, all right? So anyway. So Kennedy made this comment and said what is actual fact that profoundly autistic people cannot communicate, they do not make eye contact, they spin, they walk in circles, they stim, they cannot tolerate noise, they can't wear their clothes because the clothes bother their skin. It is no way to live.
Right. He was talking about,
And
he
he's
used the word
talking
severe.
about that, yes.
Yeah. And then, but he got blasted as if he was talking about the
Oh, yeah.
entire population of autistic persons, and he wasn't.
No, he
Because
wasn't.
there's plenty of high functioning people with autism.
Yes, and I'm not even sure that, you know, whether that is all autism or not, but
Well-
I know it's been made into a hipster thing in the last 6 years. And I believe it was on purpose. Some political lefty wrote a book about neurotribes, try to make it a hip, cool thing to have autism. Pharmaceutical companies love that because
Well,
it you know, makes
One of
it,
the arguments, too, is that we're seeing more cases of autism just because it's being recognized more. And it is possible that some of them can be attributed to that. Maybe the high functioning.
but not this profound thing.
No,
It's
not the profound
never been
ones.
around before.
No.
Never.
No.
And in fact, you can ask everyone you know who is over the age of, I think, 40, do you know a profoundly autistic person? And the answer is no.
The answer is no.
There are none.
Right, for the boomers especially. Like,
Oh, yeah, zero.
absolutely not.
Nothing. Zero.
None.
And that was when people had big families. And
Right.
went to, I went to school. There wasn't one child like that in my school, not one.
No,
And none of
I
my,
went to
just
large-
none.
I went to a fairly large K through 8 school, and then a kind of a medium large high school, about 2,000 kids. Never,
Never heard of it.
no
Right.
clue. None.
So it just doesn't matter whether you're Mr. Pharma Protector. Don't you want to know what is causing this? And in a country that went absolutely hysterical and insane over a cold virus,
Right.
and spent trillions of dollars, where is the curiosity and the desire to save our children?
It's not there.
It's demonic. I don't have any good explanation other than it is from the dark, from the devil.
Well, there is one reasonable explanation. Again, I'm no scientist. I'm
Yes.
just a dumb bald guy in a booth. But I can connect the dots. And I'm not suggesting it has anything to do with vaccines because I don't know. I'm not anyone to say. But it would make sense given the vaccine schedule and it just seems to coincide
Right.
with the rise in autism. But that's not why I'm suggesting that there's the connection. I'm suggesting there's a connection because all you hear denies vaccines, and zero curiosity about what it is. So they don't want to look into the
Right.
into the why.
That's a great point.
Because they're afraid the finger's pointing at them. That's what I think.
Well, and we know that they have quite a history of covering up
And
their
I hope
crimes.
I hope I'm wrong. I hope it's not vaccines. I hope it's pollen that we can eliminate tomorrow,
Yeah.
and the problem's gone.
That's
I
it.
hope it's not
We need
vaccines.
it. We need to know the cause, and we need treatment. Because, and I didn't finish my thought, but I had 3 vaccines. Kids right behind me had 8. Now they have 72 vaccines starting on the date of your birth. And at the same time
How-
that the vaccine schedule increased, autism exploded. So, of course, there needs to be serious studies about the vaccines. And it's not necessarily the vaccine part of it. It's the aluminum, the mercury, and
Correct.
whatever
Yeah,
else
yeah,
is
yeah,
in
yeah.
there. God only knows. I'm sure they found a way to put SV40 in there because they put it in everything. And that's simian virus 40, which is just the
And
whole
again,
thing. It's crazy.
also again, it might not have anything to do with that, or it might only impact a small segment of the population.
let's find out.
Or it might work only in combination with other factors. The problem is it hasn't been seriously looked into. Only the why not gets looked into.
That's exactly right. And
Not
that's
the
why
why.
Kennedy, I thought his comments were great. It's like, we're going to look at everything. Environmental toxins,
Absolutely.
the water, the containers that our kids drink out of. Thank goodness red dye's gone, although I'm sure by now there's marches by the Democrats drinking red dye. I want my red dye, whatever, because it's being eliminated
Actually,
by us.
It's actually kind of not. The last headline I saw on that, but
I
I don't.
thought it was.
Well, and I did too. But I think it's do they just voluntarily put it on the label.
Okay. Well,
And they don't have to eliminate
anyway,
it.
it's some progress, but by the pet rock community, also known as the medical community. And, you know, it's just really important that we get to the bottom of it. And thank God, finally, someone. And that's one of the reasons Trump got elected. For all the lefties who can't understand it. Most people who have family members who have autism, that's kind of a big deal. And this is the first time a government in my lifetime has showed any interest whatsoever in saving our children of the future.
Well, it's high
and I'm
time.
damn happy about it. Yes, it is. This is Baldy and the Blonde. We will be back right after the break. You can follow us at Baldy Blonde on X and baldyandblonde.com and on Facebook. Welcome back to Baldy and the Blonde.
Michelle, you fell asleep.
I was reading something about
Jeez.
autism. I really was.
I was enjoying the music,
I'm sorry,
and there you
it was
are.
kind of good. I was listening to the music.
Michelle says, "Yeah, don't worry, I'll bring us
I'll
in."
bring us back in. And meanwhile, I'm reading a post from a guy I know who has an autistic child. And I'm not going to say his name, but I literally was just reading it. Finally, he writes about Bobby Kennedy. Finally, someone who wants to help. What's unbelievable is the people who oppose what he's doing. I challenge anyone who opposes, spend a day with my son, then get back to me. My bet is you won't make half a day. And that's a guy I know. Plus, as you know, other family members of mine.
Well, half a day is being pretty generous.
Yeah.
Most people probably couldn't take 20 minutes.
And he says he knows his kids was caused by vaccines, and that's because a lot of the people, including a huge study from a guy that we're going to play a sound clip from. There's a PhD researcher from Australia named Toby Rogers who was on Steve Bannon's show recently. And we did a few clips from there, but I highly recommend that if you're interested in this topic, go listen to that interview. He cites some studies that I had never heard of before, one of which proves that it's not just a better diagnosis, and it was, believe me, from a leftist university in California that concluded that, no, it is increasing prevalence, that it is a 32,000% increase. 32,000%. And it's a study... let's see, I'll just name them, but you can find it by looking up Dr. Toby Rogers. State of California, UC Davis, led by Robert Byrd, and another study led by Herv Pachotto at UC Davis, and also Susan Ozanoff. And all these studies corroborating that it is indeed an explosion. But anyway, I wanted to introduce a clip from that interview because it was so compelling, because there's something else that has to be considered with autism. Unlike cancer, heart attacks, these are diseases that, well, before the COVID vaccine, mostly impacted older people, although now, after the vaccine, we're seeing it on the rise in all age groups, inexplicably. But anyway, normally the cost to society of illness is not spread out from the time you're born till you die. But with autism, it is. With severe, profound autism, it is your whole life. And the economic impact is incredible.
Yeah, the numbers are staggering.
I had never heard that. Yeah, so here we go. Let's roll with
clip.
Dr. Rogers.
I've been researching this since 2015, and originally, for most of the 20th century, autism was so rare, no one even thought to do a prevalence study. So you don't have the first autism prevalence study until 1970, and the prevalence rate at that time was 1 in 10,000 children. And then in the 1980s, the autism rate started to skyrocket, and so we were seeing 1 in 5,000, 1 in 2,500, 1 in 1,000, and the rates just kept going up and up. And so now we're at 1 in 31 children, and in California, it's even higher than that. They looked at 4-year-olds in 2022, and they found that 4-year-olds have a 6% autism rate. This is a civilization-ending epidemic if we don't get in front of it. In 2015, autism cost the United States $268 billion a year. So that's increased educational costs, increased housing costs, increased medical costs, and the research that I've done with Mark Blaxell and Cynthia Nevison shows that we're going to hit $1 trillion a year in autism costs in the United States by the end of the decade. But we've just never had a situation before where 3%, 4%, 5% of the population is disabled for life in infancy. So the thing about autism is autism costs more than cancer, stroke, and heart disease combined. because those diseases happen later in life and for a shorter period of time. With autism, these are costs and challenges over a lifetime.
Just what you were saying.
That's
And, as far as
shocking.
with the pharmaceutical industry, my thought is Shakespeare's is, what did he say? That, thou dost protest too much,
yes,
methinks.
methinks thou
They-
doth protest too much.
No, I think I got it right.
Yeah, you probably did.
It's
You're
other
the
way
English
around.
major.
No, it's the other way around. Everybody gets it wrong,
Everyone.
except me. I
Of
said
course,
it right.
'cause
Look
you're-
it up.
you're-
Google it. Look it up.
I'll look it up.
The point is, I really think that that's why they don't want it looked at. They just say over and over, "You're crazy. It's not
You're
vaccines."
crazy.
Fine, help us look into it. But they're not doing that, are they?
No. Well, they are now.
They're not looking into it.
Lawyer
they're
up.
pharmaceuticals. They're not researching a drug that could maybe turn things around. Come on.
No.
No.
Listen, something's wrong, obviously, right? I mean, something's terribly wrong. And again, if you want to hear that whole interview, it's Steve Bannon, The War Room, and the guest is Dr. Toby Rogers, who is also on Substack. And if I remember, we'll put a link to it on our. I think the best place would be to put it on the Facebook page, and y'all please come join our Facebook group. Like us on YouTube. Like us on.
Just like us.
Just like us in general. What the heck? We're likable.
Yeah, just tell everybody you like
Yeah,
us.
we're ass kicking.
I like being liked in the
hell-raisers.
real world, not the cyber
digital world.
that
Yeah.
doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. So anyway, it's a topic that needs a lot of attention. So I'm going to go and read a shocking headline in the medical arena that I saw right before we came on the show. So I didn't have time to really look into it, but I did post it.
Like seconds before we went on the air, this
seconds.
popped up.
And it
So
comes
we haven't
from
looked at it
Dr.
yet.
Naomi Wolf, who is a former leftist, New York Times bestseller, feminist, PhD, who has recently become much more liberty-minded and against the Democrat Party because basically they exiled her because she dared to question their attacks on free speech and particularly their position on mandatory vaccines, which were not vaccines, mRNA. So this is what she writes today. This is extremely shocking. In the Pfizer papers, Pfizer warns vaccinated men not to have intercourse with childbearing age women, but they do not say why, except that it's clear that something they fear in exposure to the vaccine is via sperm. This may be what Pfizer was afraid of, and I'll read you what she says in a minute. First thing I want to point out, any comments before I go further?
Well, always take note of what the source is.
Yes.
And her source, because I've been following her for a little while on
Me
this
too.
project, her source is documents that were released by Pfizer.
Right.
It's their documents.
Correct.
It's a pretty trustworthy source when they're talking about Pfizer.
Yes.
And it's bad.
And they're telling
Right.
men, don't have intercourse with your wife or girlfriend.
So if Pfizer's own documents are not in Pfizer's interest, it's probably reliable.
Yes, I would think. And then she says this may be what Pfizer was afraid of, and she quotes two doctors, one of whom is citing another one. Here's the quote. Professor Dr. Arnie Burkhardt, a German pathologist, presents an unsettling slideshow revealing that in vaccinated males, the spike protein from the COVID vaccine, ready, has entirely replaced their sperm. I don't even know what to say.
That is truly shocking.
Isn't it?
And I'm not easily shocked.
And I'm not prepared to expand on this or anything. It's just I'm just thought we should at least throw it out there.
Yeah, we don't know
because
how
she's reliable.
legitimate that is,
Yeah.
but she is reliable.
Dr.
And-
Naomi Wolf. Just go check her out. I think I got that on Twitter, X.
You said entirely replaced, not interfering
Entirely,
with.
not within the sperm.
Because if
it replaced
that's
it,
true.
so people can get pregnant with spike proteins. No, that's not going to happen.
if that's true,
And just remember, a normal vaccine, which we could talk about this later, but a normal vaccine takes a little piece of a flu or something like that and sticks it in you when it's dead, so that you'll. But this makes
was-
you a spike protein
this was
factory.
gene therapy. They even
Yes,
said
gene
it was
therapy.
gene therapy.
Incredible.
This
All
is
right,
the end of humanity if it's true.
You're absolutely right. Back in a minute. Baldy and the Blonde.
Welcome back to the Baldy and the Blonde Show. I'm Tom Coates with Michelle Godin. Michelle, you wanted to add something before you move on.
We were recently talking about autism and also that shocking news that the sperm has been replaced in vaccinated males with the spike protein. So we will come back to those topics. We talk about autism a lot on this show for our new listeners, but the spike protein replacing sperm is shocking, and hope to follow up on that next week.
Right. And that, just to be clear, that was breaking news seriously right seconds before we went on the
Correct.
air. We
That's
got
correct.
that. So we haven't had a chance, obviously, to do any kind of research.
And the source was Dr. Naomi Wolf, whose source was the Pfizer papers
Right.
and some medical insight into that.
Yeah, her source, again, is the documents that Pfizer itself
Which
released.
Pfizer tried to cover up for 75 years.
Right. That's for 75 years to release.
In a rare instance, there was a cooperative judge who said, no, you will release
Right.
them now.
And Naomi Wolf has got a team of like 3,000 volunteers.
She does,
going through
who
it.
go through the papers, yes.
All right, so switching gears, the leftists' violent or incendiary rhetoric has really got out of control.
Yes.
And that's the side you hear it from. They would say the opposite, but I'm just not hearing it really from the right. This is a survey this hit the news maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, something like that, where a survey was taken, and 55% of those who identify as left of center is the way they describe themselves. 55% said that if Trump were killed, the killer would be justified in doing so.
Sounds reasonable.
55%. And a lot of people have reported that.
Wow.
But what they haven't reported, because I went to the survey myself, I didn't just listen to the news reports.
Because you are the source man.
I went right
you
to
go
the source.
to the source.
And here's what's really shocking is that they asked these people to rate themselves on a scale of 0 to 7 on just how far left they are. 0 being central or barely left of center, and 7 being extreme, and 6 also being fairly extreme. So if you look at
How many people is
I'm
that?
sorry. What percentage of the people
In the
labeled
country.
themselves 6 and 7? And the answer to that is about 20.9%, okay, of the people who are left of center are extremely left of center, okay, by their own identification. So I ran some numbers. That would mean, because 27% of people are left of center, and I looked up the population,
Right.
and that comes to about 70 million people are left of center, which means about 14 to 15 million people are in the rate themselves 6 or 7 on that, right?
Yes.
So there's 14 to 15 million people who say that they would be totally justified in if Trump were killed, okay? And if only 1 in 1,000 of them would be willing to act on it, you have 14 to 15,000 people willing to act on that. And I don't think that's an unreasonable assumption. The point is that the reason we've got to that point is the leaders of the left have been extremely incendiary in their rhetoric for years.
They love it. They started by shooting baseball players, Republican baseball players, by a Bernie Sanders guy, 2 attempts on Trump's life. I'm just talking while you bring the clips up.
I got it ready. I got it
ready
right here.
All right, let's roll.
Yeah, there's 8 clips on this one clip, so I'll pause in between.
All right, wait. These are clips showing what? Lefty violence?
Yeah, no, it's just,
or is it self-explanatory?
Self-explanatory.
Right.
The first one is Kamala Harris on the Ellen DeGeneres show.
If you had to be stuck in an elevator with either President Trump, Mike Pence, or Jeff Sessions, who would it be?
Does one of us have to come out alive?
Does one of us have to come out alive? And the audience howled. I cut it out because I didn't have time to listen to all that stupid cackling. But the audience just absolutely howled.
Yeah, but
obviously, she wasn't going to kill somebody, but
still,
it is violent rhetoric.
Still, when you have that number of people out there who say they
That's the
believe that
point.
the killing is justified,
Yes.
they are trying to gin those people up.
Next is Hillary Clinton.
You cannot be civil with a political party that wants to destroy what you stand for, what you care about. That's why I believe if we are fortunate enough to win back the House and/or the Senate, that's when civility can start again.
Oh, that's nice.
Can't be civil if the Republicans are in the majority. We can't be civil.
Yeah, because we don't agree. We don't agree with what she stands
We
up
can
for.
only
What does
be
she stand
civil.
up for?
Incivility, for one.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Nancy Pelosi, representative from California.
Yeah, we know Pelosi.
I just don't even know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be.
She was talking about some of the policies with immigration. Uprisings all over the country.
She was for that, too, with George Floyd.
Next, here's a
always
famous
for that.
clip. This is Maxine Waters, another representative from California.
Let's make sure we show up wherever we have to show up. And if you see anybody from that cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gasoline station, you get out and you create a crowd. And you push back on them. And you tell them they're not welcome anymore, anywhere.
Anymore, anywhere.
Not welcome anymore, anywhere. Get a crowd together and get in their face because they're not welcome anymore, anywhere. So we had Representative of California, another Representative of California. Next is Madonna, whore from Michigan.
Yes, I'm angry.
Angry.
Yes, I am outraged. Yes, I have thought and
Well, I'll finish the
Okay.
quote. An awful lot of bombing the White House.
Blowing up the White House. And you know what? I don't know what is up with these clips. This happens often, and I test them, and they work fine for
I
me.
know.
And they don't work fine in the studio. I don't know what's going on.
We'll talk to.
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's a weird thing, but it steps on the punchline sometimes.
It does.
And it did there.
Yep.
So Madonna, the whore from Michigan, said that she's thought a lot about blowing up the White House. That was the day after the inauguration in 2017.
The first time, yeah, 2017.
Next is Cory Booker, senator from New Jersey. It died.
Why?
I don't know.
I'm sure it was something pleasant that he said. See if you can
Well,
get-
no, I can just tell you what I recall. Basically, he was giving a talk somewhere, and he said, "Today, I hope you don't just leave here and just go home and whatever. I want you to go to Congress and get in Congress people's face."
Yeah, well, that worked out well for the. Now, of course, if you're a Republican, it's not going to go that well for
So-
you. If you go to Congress,
Kobe, can you go to sound clip number 1 on your board and scroll to minute 15, something like that. And if it doesn't work, we'll give up.
Please don't just come here today and then
That's
go,
Corey.
oh, go
That's
to
Corey.
the Hill today. Please get up in the face of some Congress people.
Oh yeah.
All right, next is Ted Lieu, another representative from California.
If the president does go ahead and fire Robert Mueller, we would have people take to the streets. I believe there would be widespread civil unrest.
Just for firing Mueller, widespread civil unrest. Okay, pause it for a second. Next is Cynthia Johnson. That might not be anybody you've ever heard of. She's a Michigan state representative. So Michigan was represented twice, once by Madonna the whore from Michigan, and once Cynthia Johnson, the state representative from Michigan. Here we go.
Just a warning to you Trumpers. Be careful. Walk lightly. We ain't playing with you. Enough is enough. And for those of you who are soldiers, you know how to do it. Do it right.
Whoa.
Be in order. Make them pay.
Wow.
Right.
She been investigated? That's really.
Oh yeah, the Michigan State House somehow reprimanded her somehow, stripped her of committees
Yeah.
or whatever, but nothing ever.
But
of course,
she got
that was
her
direct
message
criminal.
out. People
Yes.
heard it.
And then the next
that,
day, she tried to walk it back the next day on some live Facebook chat by saying she was talking to the soldiers of Jesus.
Oh yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus advocates violence, of course.
And then, so now, after all that incendiary rhetoric, most of that stuff was from like 2018, 2019. You fast forward to today, we've had 2 assassination attempts on the president, and you have these criminals going after, well, all these Teslas, for one. The one dude with like 6 counts, 6 felonies against him, and you said they dropped the charges?
He got diversion, which is basically drop the chart after he goes through some little tiny, program where he may or may not, as they said, have to pay the people back. He cost $20,000 in damages to 6 cars in Louisiana. That's 6 felonies.
And then
And he could be looking at, I don't know what the statute
No,
is
they're
exactly,
letting him
but I could be looking at 15 years here.
You have dealerships being firebombed,
Yeah,
I think
nothing.
in Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Now, there's no guarantee that those people are leftists, but if I was a betting man, I'd know where I'd bet.
I mean, and these are Soros DAs, and this is how you do a color revolution, right? Look that up, because that's what's going on.
Absolutely, that's
Yeah,
what's
it's
what's
what
going
we
on.
do in other countries. We're doing it
The
here.
bad guys do bad stuff and then don't get prosecuted.
Yeah.
Well, guess what? It's going to lead to more bad stuff.
Yeah.
Duh.
Yeah, people are upset that we have a president who is kind of onto the game this time and has surrounded himself with people who also are aware of the game.
And this dude, what's his name? Luigi Mangione.
Yeah.
He's got a GoFundMe or one of those crowdsource things where he's got, I don't know, $500,000-$600,000.
Oh yeah, women want to marry him, and
Yeah.
it's just absolutely absurd. But
And he's a
you know,
cold-blooded assassin.
yes, he is. And you know, meanwhile, cold-blooded assassins are here in our country with the pleasure and approval of the Supreme Court. And we'll talk about that when we get back on Baldy and the Blonde. Back to Baldy and the Blonde. This is Michelle Godin, back after a 2-week hiatus.
Welcome back, Michelle.
Thank you, Tommy.
Good to have you back. It was boring being alone.
Was it?
In the Buddha Troop.
I'm sorry. Usually I would call in, but it literally was driving. You know, it's a driving trip to go to the Gatlinburg Mountains, and it just didn't work out right. So, anyway, we will look into future dates when we can't be here. Try to get with the technology world and pre-record some stuff. So, anyway, what's been going on in the Supreme Court is very interesting. The last show I was here for 2 weeks ago, I thought we had some pretty amazing information about Justice Roberts and his friendship with Mark Elias, who is the Democrat consigliere pushing all of the bizarre lawsuits all over the country with Democrat judges and leftist activist judges to thwart the will of the people. I know everybody on the left likes to say, oh, yeah, we're defeating Trump. No, you're defeating the will of the American electorate who elected Trump
Yeah, you got that right.
to throw the illegals out of this country. So we had an illegal operation run by Biden and Obama before him and with him, because I'm sure he was still the president when drooling, demented Biden, who was sharp as a tack, was running the borders. And Kamala was in charge. And we opened the borders, and through Catholic charities and other groups, who were fed millions of taxpayer dollars to facilitate an invasion of this country. There's estimates between 10 and 20 million illegals flooded this country in the last 4 years, thanks to the illegal acts of the executive, which the Supreme Court did nothing to stop. Nothing.
Yeah, they stopped the deportation.
It's a literal invasion. And now there's all this. Honestly, it's very hard to talk without getting into some bad language. So let me start it. It's very hard to discuss this because I've never seen such
Wait,
out of control
I'll beep you
judges.
out.
Yeah, you beep. Anyway, so
judge.
So Justice Roberts spent a couple of weeks at the Czechoslovakian mansion of Mark Elias, and I wonder why he and his girlfriend Amy of the Crazy Eyes, Barrett, have joined the leftist side of the court, and I no longer refer to them as conservatives. They're not. They're leftists.
Please.
It's just a joke.
When
They're honestly, Barrett got in as a Trojan horse. I'm
Oh,
sorry,
for sure.
Dominican High School from New Orleans. She is an embarrassment.
Don't you
She's
love
a disgrace.
when the news stories say that those two sided with the liberals?
They are, and they're not.
Stop
Nobody's liberal.
writing
These
that.
are leftists. They are not
Well, yeah.
liberals. You know,
Well, but that's the way they
But
phrase
that is
it.
what they call
sided
it.
with
That's
the liberals.
true. So anyway,
They don't say that about the other liberals.
right. So getting back to the 20 million that invaded, I guess, according to Amy and Johnny Roberts and Mark Elias and all the leftists, each and every one of those people is going to get a trial before they can be deported, contrary to all immigration law. Okay. So we do not have the courts to accommodate 20 million slow-walking, illegal invaders having their day in court. They're not Americans. They're here illegally, and they should be deported, period, under the law, period. And so what President Trump tried to use was the Alien Invasion Act of 1798 because...
The Alien Enemies Act.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm sorry. The Alien Enemies Act of 1798. And the courts have been not helpful at all, and the Supreme Court actually acted with extraordinary responsiveness, never afforded to Americans, I might add. We can't get a day in court. We have no standing to object to elections. We have no standing to object to
Even
voter...
states don't have standing.
Nobody has standing, but these guys do, to the extent that the ACLU, who used to be for liberty, rushes to a court on Good Friday, and in a move that I have never heard of and would never try, told the judge that the judge must rule within 45 minutes. And apparently that's okay currently. I could imagine me, you know me, Tom. I'm a litigator. And imagine me going over to civil district court or criminal court and saying, I need an answer from you, Judge. You have 45 minutes.
And the clock's ticking.
Right? And the judge would be like, what?
If you
Get out of here.
write that into a story,
honestly,
a screenplay,
I'd be held in contempt of court. It's absolutely absurd. Nobody would believe it.
Your script would be laughed at, mocked, shredded.
Well, that's what they
because
did.
It's absurd.
Absurd.
The plaintiff's counsel would tell the judge, you got to rule within 45 minutes. And they did say that. This is real.
They actually said that.
Now, not to the Supreme Court.
No, this was to the Texas court.
Right, and they got away with it.
They got
away.
away.
That Texas court ruled within 133 minutes, but it wasn't
How
fast enough.
dare they?
It had already been bypassed them.
So they took it over to New Orleans Camp Street, the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, who was getting ready to hear it. But instead, Johnny Roberts at, I guess, 1 a.m. on or I guess 11, I don't know, sometime late, midnight-ish on Good Friday, got all the other guys up, and everybody said, oh, no. You can't deport the people under the Alien Enemies Act.
When you read the text of that act, the plain language.
Because everything, if you're reading the press, as usual, they are lying to you, and everything that they say is a lie. Because they're saying that, the Alien Enemies Act doesn't allow the president to do this because we're not at war. Now, Tom, as I told you, always goes directly to the actual source. So read
to the act itself, not some news story or lawyer's opinion about it. I don't trust them.
You should not.
So I looked up
and you have
the text of the act. I have it right in front of me. It says, and I'll be skipping a few places here, whenever there shall be a declared war between the United States and any foreign nation or government, or, and here's the key words,
or
any invasion or predatory incursion shall be perpetrated, attempted, or threatened against the territory of the United States by any foreign nation or government. So this is, sure, we're not at war, we're not a declared war, but how is this not either an invasion or
a predatory act?
A predatory incursion. Now, the other key words, though, are by any foreign nation or government. Now, this is not by any government, but they notice that they used nation or government.
Yes.
They separated those two. So a nation, I suppose, would be interpreted as the people,
I think so.
The populace? Because
it's certainly
not the government.
Limited, it's not limited to the government. It's a nation or.
Right. It's not limited to the government, and it's not limited to wars, and it's not even limited to invasion. It's predatory incursion. I don't know how this does not meet that.
It doesn't meet it because it's Donald Trump and because the people who are really running this country want us to implode.
Well, absolutely.
I mean, if you read the Cloward and Pivens, that's what's going on. Bringing all these foreigners who have no time to assimilate, who can't read, write, or add to society, they're illegals. They're not supposed to be here. They've jumped over people who are waiting in line to get into the United States legally, and apparently that's who the Supreme Court will bend over backwards.
Sure, at moment's notice, with seconds' notice.
I'm going to try that next time I file something.
Yeah,
Judge, you have 32 seconds.
And all it takes is for the Associated Press to put out an article saying, "Well, we're not at war, so this doesn't count."
Listen, I guess then you can have an invasion of the country because the last time this country was legally declared a war was in World War II.
Right.
All right. Since then, we're just constantly at war, but we're not at war. But there is a war on terrorists, and who are the terrorists? Domestic terrorists. That's us.
Oh, yeah, that's us.
So,
we're the people talking right now.
Us, you and me. Y'all, this is Baldy and the Blonde. We're here every Wednesday at 4, raising a little hell because there is so much tyranny in so little time. You can follow us, baldyandtheblonde.com, where you can find all of our old shows commercial free. And we will see you next week at Baldy Blonde on X.